Well, welcome everyone to this final day of the bonus week of the 5 generations of epic entrepreneurs and getting your biz lean. This has been one heck of a program filled with so much content. And my hope is that today is just going to be a great way to just kind of bring it all together, teach you the final component of the solutions focused process model, and then be able to talk about how you'll be able to apply the model going forward over and over again, because by now you're really probably starting to see how this is something that is just you're in the process of being a solutions focused person over and over and over again. So today I'm very excited. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to screen share to get us started, and then we'll come back online to have some good discussions with Coach B. So as a reminder, so this is the solutions focused process model, and we started the week by talking about how to identify a problem worth solving. That, sometimes, you can just be in the thick of it and you are in the problem itself, but then what you can do is make the conscious choice to shift into becoming solutions focused. And what that takes is just starting to come up with ideas for solutions. So that was where we moved to the second phase. Then we went and discussed about the collaboration phase, which is where you really start to get feedback on the different solutions that you've come up with, and you really start figuring out, well, who is on my team in this? Who can help me deliver this solution out to the world? And what resources do I need to put in place in order to actually execute and go into the testing phase, which we talked about yesterday. And what we did was apply the tool of using SMART goals to actually turning it into SMART solutions. And then being able to just figure out, okay, we have to be, it's very effective when we are results oriented. And so in the testing phase, you're able to really 100%, the most important thing is stopping to observe and ask for feedback and receive the feedback and take note on the feedback as you're testing out the solution. And so today what we're going to do is go into what I enjoy terming the plus delta phase. This is the plus delta, and I'm going to stop screen sharing just here for a moment to be able to talk about this. So the plus delta comes from leadership theory, actually. And when I worked at the Center for Leadership and Social Change at Florida State University, we implemented the plus delta after everything that we executed. So we did a lot of special events. And so anytime that we had an event, we would all come together as a team and put up a big plus sign and a big delta sign. And we would all talk about and discuss, okay, what are the things that are in the plus column, which is what worked, and then what was in the delta column, and that is delta stands for change. So what do we feel needs to change for next time, or what do we feel needs to change? And is there anything that we need to do in order to what is called pivot? So this is where I'm really excited to talk about this, because pivot is a very strong word used in the entrepreneurship culture and in the community. That is just something that happens quite a bit. We call it pivoting, and what that is you'll see on the slide. It's where you have to make a conscious decision of what you're going to do next, and it might be where the direction that you thought you were going, after receiving all the feedback that you received from the testing phase, you're realizing, oh wow, you know what, maybe we need to shift direction a little bit to get more in alignment. And so what I'd love to do is have Dottie or Coach B come on and kind of talk about her experience with this. I know she has some really good examples of this, specifically because of her experience as a basketball coach, and then also too as an experienced entrepreneur. So Dottie, please tell us.
Yeah, okay, thanks, Jen. It's interesting when you talk about putting something in the plus and something in the delta side. I love this so much better, because people often go pros and cons, as if one is right and one is wrong. And when you put plus and delta, it's a both and. And so we have something really great and positive that happens, and we need to shift. We need to change, and nothing wrong with that. So, when you talk about pivot, I can't help but go back to my old basketball days. And there are so many parallels between coaching and entrepreneurship. That's why I say when I was born to coach, I've never quit coaching. I just changed the vehicle which I ride. But in pivot, I'll give you this great example. One time we had a lady named Tanya Fogel, amazing basketball player. But in games, she continued to get called for walking. Now you say, well, what does that got to do with entrepreneurship? Well, hold on, I'm going to draw the connections here. But anyway, she just could not see what was going on. And what was happening, though, is she was getting called for walking because when she was executing what we call a fake with the ball and the head, which is you have the ball here, you head fake and ball fake, so that you can try to get the defensive player up in the air so you can drive around them and score. She was given a great head fake, a great ball fake. The problem is she was faking with her pivot foot as well. She was moving it, in other words, but she couldn't see it. So she was getting frustrated trying to blame the referee. Finally, I said, Tanya, let's really get into a practice session, because even in the game tape, sometimes she just wasn't quite getting it. So we zeroed in on her, and I just said, get out there, play, do your head fakes, do whatever. And we videotaped her. And then we took her to the side, very gently working with her to show her what was going on. I mean, she had this aha moment. She was like able to connect what she was doing with what was happening. And then we started working on it. Not like we just said, okay, now Tanya, go out there and don't move your foot. No, that's not going to happen. You have to practice. A lot of people say practice makes perfect. Not true. The right kind of practice. I don't even say perfect practice anymore because there's really no such thing. But the right kind of practice makes the right kind of action, okay? So in this case, it was a moving of the pivot foot. So what you need to know is even in pivoting sometimes, it might not be the right move and you might have to make further adjustments. But pivot is a very important concept, not only in basketball, but, in entrepreneurship. And those are the parallels that I kind of wanted to offer up for people.
I so appreciate that, Daddy. Yeah, I think sometimes people wonder where the term pivot comes from, and I believe that it comes from basketball. That's a big important aspect of basketball, is that you are going one direction and then you fake by pivoting to go in another direction to achieve the result that you're looking to achieve. And so that's what I'm going to do now is screen share again, to be able to dive a little bit further into this information for everyone. So here you go. So here's the plus sign and then the delta sign. And so I really, really resonate with the plus delta versus the pro con. I remember when this was introduced to me, I just realized, wow, I just feel like this is so much more high vibrational, and it's just very positive, and it keeps everybody really motivated. And that was something we were talking a lot about earlier in the week, was how to keep your team motivated. And we talked about helping them connect to why they're doing what they're doing. And I said my favorite definition of leadership is when you are able to motivate, or when you're able to inspire somebody to do something because they want to do it. And so the plus delta also plays a role into this, right? Because it's not about scolding, and it's not about saying that you did something quote unquote wrong. What it is about, okay, we are in the exploration of evolving this business, and the thing is that it's not so much about getting it perfect, because it's impossible to. I've not met one person in business who set out and said, yep, I planned this out and it went exactly how we planned it. I've never heard that story. You
can't help but have me chuckle here in the background.
Oh, go for it, Johnny. Yes.
I'm trying to be quiet, but I'm going, oh my goodness, that just gives me a big chuckle about things. Yeah, it's so true.
Yes, right? It's like, I've never met anybody, and I have heard many, many stories in my career thus far, and every single story was, I think the commonality that I always hear was, we didn't know how we were going to do it. We just knew that we were going to do it. And that attitude is what you need in order to really, accomplish what it is that you set out to do. That inspiration and that level of belief. And I believe that the execution of that is the ability to do a proper analysis of what's working along the way, and then not being afraid to say, okay, what do we need to change? And then being able to make what I say is educated shifting, educated pivoting. And we call it, I like to use the word conscious decision making. And what I mean by that is just that the decision making isn't coming from a spur of the moment idea. It's not coming from a reaction. The decision making is coming from being proactive. So again, I'm going to repeat that. Conscious decision making, it does not come from a reaction. Instead, it comes from being proactive from the information that you gathered in your testing. It's very results oriented, from being able to take feedback. And like I said yesterday, at the center, we used to always say feedback is love, because sometimes it can be hard to receive that feedback, especially when you put your heart and soul into something. But if you can maintain that, first of all, when you surround yourself with the right team, you can trust that the feedback that you receive is coming from a loving place, and it's coming from a place of wanting you to succeed. It's coming from a place of that they believe in you. And then the feedback that you get from your customer, from your target market, is hands down the most valuable feedback that you can receive, because they're who you are serving. And so what you want to be able to do is get their feedback to be able to make conscious decisions of, okay, so what is working? What are we doing really, really well, and what is landing really well with this market? And then, okay, what needs to change? What are they asking for? And then, you can get even more advanced of like the Steve Jobs level, which is where he started to be able to see what people didn't even know what they didn't know what to ask for, but he was able to listen to what it was that they were wanting, and then create technology that took what they were looking for to a whole new level that nobody even could have imagined. So I hope that is making sense. So again,
hey, let me
go
just
ahead.
for a second and take what you've just offered back
Sure.
to the analogy. So think about this. In basketball, you want to keep that pivot foot on the ground because you can move, okay? I can turn around, come back here, do a bounce pass, So think about it. The minute that Tanya did the head fake and the ball fake and moved her foot, she took away her options because she got called for walking. The minute she learned to keep her foot in place so that she could pivot, then when she ball faked and head faked, and the defense didn't fall for it, they were still on the ground with her, then she could turn on that pivot foot this way. She could, pass with her left hand, or she could come back around and pass with her right hand, or she could face them again at the end of that series, head fake, ball fake, within the time that she can hold the ball. This happens very quickly, and maybe that time they fall for it, So think about that. She's reading, what they're giving her. She makes her moves, and so what she's able to do next, because of that, exactly what you said, Jen, gave her options in moving forward.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that, Dottie. That was a great way to continue to bring the analogy even deeper into the understanding. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So now, talking about what is pivoting, what is this educated shifting, I like to sometimes say, like, and this just kind of helps take the pressure off. It really is. It's that you go from plan A to plan B to eventually plan C to plan N, and so on and so on and so on. It's one of those things of just being able to embrace the pivot, to be able to embrace that changing and shifting is part of the journey. So often I think we can get kind of locked into, I'm going to stop screen sharing just here for a moment. We can get really locked into this idea that, we come up with this plan, and then we want to execute that plan exactly how we have set out to do. And it can get so frustrating when all of a sudden that plan is just not working, the way that you were hoping that it would. And so I've seen a lot of people get stuck there, and it's almost you get into this immobilized space. And what I really found just that helps is being able to remind ourselves that this is a natural part of the process, that more than likely, over the course of my entire business, it's not going to be where I'm executing plan A. It's that it's going to be this continuous experience of coming up with new plans along the way that are going to help me be able to get to the desired result that I'm wanting to get to. And then the other part of this too is that it's not just sometimes pivoting the plan. Sometimes it's actually pivoting the vision. And that's something that can be really scary in entrepreneurship, is that you start with this one vision, and then all of a sudden as you're going along, you start to realize, wow, this is changing for me. I want something different now, and it seems like the vision is actually changing. And what I want to bring forward is to let you know that that's okay. It's okay. What's important though is to, like what I was saying earlier, is to be able to do the self-regulation to check. Sometimes I'll be asked, Jen, what are you doing? And I make a joke and I'm like, I'm checking myself before I wreck myself, because I'm in it right now. I'm feeling the stress, and I need to take a moment to kind of self-regulate to see where I'm at. Because I know that if I have something happening where I'm like, wow, my vision is starting to shift, I know that I have to take that moment to say, okay, what's my reaction? Let me just take the moment for it. I'm not going to take an action until that passes, and then be able to really take all the feedback that I've gathered, all the observations that I have, check in with myself, to then be able to make a proactive decision about what is going to be best for myself, my team, and my entire company moving forward. And so, Dottie, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, what I share with people is often during those times, and I'll include myself, is we go into what's called the fight or flight mode. It's a thing that happens naturally because of our history, but sometimes that happens and we no longer are going to be eaten by animals, but it feels like it. And the way you can check is if your heart rate goes above 100 beats a minute, you'll feel anxiety. And so part of moving through that is self-soothing. I tell people, take a walk. Self-soothing doesn't mean go have a glass of wine and, those kind of things. It really is maybe listening to some music, allowing your heart rate to come back down so that you can make a good decision, because there's something that happens in the fight or flight mode. Literally, think about it. When we used to have to be running for our lives, we got tunnel vision with our sight and with our ears. So if you're ever in an exchange with somebody and you find yourself getting escalated, you're in that fight or flight mode, and somebody will say, I said this, and you go, no, you didn't. And literally you can't hear in that moment that somebody did say something, even though they might have said something. So the same thing happens internally, I think, with what you're describing when we become into a place of fear. And I saw that, we're going into the false elements appear real. And what I work to do in my, what is very similar to what you do, is transform that into the good kind of fear, which is full evolution attracts revolution or revelations. So it's all about transforming ourselves in the moment and how we move through to that new level.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Dottie.
You're welcome.
Let me just start to screen share again to go back to this slide. So it's all about being okay with changing direction. Something that I bring up a lot in my coaching is that, we actually know Okay, so something that I was trained in that I really, really have a lot of belief in is that everybody is an expert in their own life, and you are an expert in your own business. So when the time comes to change direction, you know it. You know that you need to do it. You can feel it. You know truth when it's there. It's just a matter of becoming okay with the fact that you have to change direction. So what you want to be able to do is practice exactly what Coach B was just talking about, which is the self-soothing. It really helps with the process of change when when you're not comfortable with change in those moments. Some people are really comfortable with change, and so then you kind of have to be able to know when it's appropriate to kind of make sure that you're not changing too soon. This again, it's always comes down to balance. And so that's why I say conscious decision making and educated shifting is that you want to be able to make these decisions based on the information that you've gathered through the entire process. And then as Coach B pointed out, I have here the fear and what people know is false evidence appearing real. I think that that's just a great reminder along the way. And I'm just going to stop screen sharing for a moment. In entrepreneurship, I say this is the hero's journey. This is the big story that everybody dreams of being able to live and being able to really apply their best selves to. With that, you have to face fear on a daily basis. It is real, and it's hands down one of the most intense experiences I believe a person can go through. And that's why I have so much respect for it. And that's why I believe in this program so much in being able to support each other in this, because it's a lot of facing fear. And so I always come back to when I'm in it and I feel the fear coming up, I like coming back to, okay, it's false evidence appearing real. And majority of the time that is very accurate, actually. I'm like, this isn't what I'm fearing is not something that actually is going to take me off course unless I let it. I can, but I have to give it permission to send me off course, or I have to give myself permission to say, you know what, I'm going to do it anyways. It might be scary to change direction, or I might feel uncomfortable to do it, but you know what? I'm going to do it anyways, because from everything that I've gathered, I know that this is the right decision in this present moment. And the other thing that I want to bring forward in this discussion is that all you can do is the best you can right now. And that's how you have no regrets along the way, is when I say the conscious decision making and why that's so important. It actually helps eliminate any type of regret that you could ever have, because you know that you're making every decision along the way with the most information that you could possibly have and with the most intention that you can have, and you're doing the best that you can in that moment. So that there was no other option. You really were doing the best you could in that moment, and if you just keep doing that, you will really always be you're always going to succeed. Because you're making that conscious choice in the present moment. We can drift to the past, or we can be anxious about the future, but at the end of the day, it's like all we can do is right here, right now. And so with that, I say in the plus delta phase, it's just such an essential component to being solutions focused, because this is where the rubber meets the road, right? These are the key decisions that you're going to be making for yourself and your life and in your business. And so with that, how you can feel the best about it is by just keeping it simple, which is, okay, let me take a moment. What worked? What needs to change? And again, it's about who's on your team as well. So who are the key people that you want to bring in that are going to be able to help give you that feedback of okay, what's working? what needs to change.
Mm.
So with all of that, Daddy, I would love to hear your thoughts about this plus delta phase in, this solutions focused model. And do you have any real world examples that you could share about when you've, had to kind of take a moment to step back and go into the analysis? I mean, I know that you do. It's just a matter of which one you would like to share.
Oh my gosh, how long do we have?
I know.
Oh my goodness. I think maybe a good one to share would be, okay, I had an interior design business in Lexington, Kentucky at one point, and just follow along where this went. One of the ladies who I was designing for her shop in downtown Lexington had a t-shirt shop. Mm-hmm. And so after working with her, she was very creative, but really on the business side was very limited. So she asked me, would you please help me in this area? And I said, I can't be all things to everything, I said, but I have someone who could come over, and she's the vice president of a bank here in town, and let's kind of see what we can do. So what we all decided to do was to actually go into business and put in more t-shirt shops. And along about the holiday season, we actually ended up putting in 5 of these, and this lady who was not really into business just didn't show up lots of times when she was supposed to. So we ended up parting business ways. But I want you to see where this went. So we're sitting here going, our intention was never to, really put in t-shirt shops, but we did, and we started learning. And what happened in that, though, is we found out that this was back during the late 80s, before people really had very, very cool looking t-shirts. And we started designing even more in depth about t-shirts that represented areas, that had great historical meaning. So that led us to putting in, creating a franchise and putting in stores all over the Southeast. But in that process, we also started having people come to us and say, gosh, we love your t-shirts. Would you do it for our event? And we'd go, well, okay. And so before we knew it, we were doing events. And in doing those events, we would have people say, well, could you possibly put the event logo on pins and cups and mugs and all this other stuff? And we would go, sure, we can do that. And we'd go out and we'd figure out, how do you do that? And what we discovered in that process, there was something called the ASI Industry, Advertising Specialties Institute. So in the beginning, we had to go find somebody who was a part of that, and then we'd have to get them to do those products. Well, finally, we thought, why don't we become a part of this ASI? So we had to learn how to you go about becoming a part of it, which was a whole nother story in and of itself. But the bottom line is, eventually, our business became the ASI Small Business of the Year in the United States, all from me having what I thought was only an interior design business. Now, there's lots of steps in there, but can you just see the flow of how we had to shift, pivot, change, make decisions? And once we were doing stores, we were like, wow, we had this $500,000 kiosk, a kiosk. Now think about the little ones in the middle, $500,000 coming through that kiosk in Atlanta, underground Georgia. Well, surely they would want one in Tampa, Florida. Bombed in Tampa, Florida. Just because it works in one place doesn't mean that everybody in Tampa wanted a shirt with Tampa on it at the time. They probably do more now than they did then, but so we had some stores that were bombs, but because we had so many great ones that were bringing in lots of money, like in New Orleans and in Atlanta, we had this whole lot of income to make mistakes. Right. To cover us. And sometimes that's what happens. But the minute you find out that something over here is drawing your positive resources, you got to go to the delta and make the change. So we had to cut our losses very quickly when that happened. So I think you can see, though, the model working in terms of the plus and the delta. So every time it was, here's the pluses, here's what needs to shift and change. And even when we entered into doing events and all like that, that means we had to make decisions on bringing graphic artists in-house or outsourcing that. We ended up at one time having 5 graphic artists. We made the decision to never have screen printing equipment. We always contracted that out. At one point later on, I did have embroidery machines. So there's all these components that you're having to make decisions about, that I had to make decisions about, that we, my partner and I, had to make decisions about. And it was definitely a plus and a delta. Now, I didn't know that that was the delta, you know, that's not what we called it. But we were definitely shifting, pivoting, and changing all the time. So I hope that helps.
It really does. Thank you so much, Shetty. And, you know, one of the other lines that comes up, I think, in entrepreneurship, I hear it a lot at least, is fail fast. Fail often, fail fast. You know, I mean, you just have to be able to continuously move forward. And I, you know, for me, you know, I don't really resonate with the word fail. So I shift it to saying, you know what, change fast, change often if you have to. You know, it's just that it just is what it is. It's part of the process. This is part of entrepreneurship. And as we embrace that, the more successful we become, because what ends up happening, I think a lot of the times, is that when these moments happen, if we don't have awareness around it, that's what stops us in our tracks, you know, because we can take it personally so easily, and it's understandable, right? Like this is your life, this is your business. So how can you not take it personally? How can that not be the first reaction that would come up, right? It's part of it. It happens. But when you have the awareness that it's just normal, this is completely part of the process, and you know what, I have to change. That's just that I have to accept that that is part of the journey. It just makes the flow happen so much smoother. I would say that the word that I think that it really does is it just makes the process smoother. And so I'm going to screen share one last time to go through this model to show you again, like why it's circular and why it just is continuous over and over again. Oops, I'm sorry. Hold on. Wrong one. There we go.
Yeah.
So as you can see is that as you're going through the plus delta phase, when you figure out what needs to change, well, guess what? You just identified a new problem. That's all it is. You know, you just identified a new problem that needs a solution, right? So then you come up with a new solution. You ask for collaboration on how to make that solution be executed, and then you go out and you test it. And then guess what? You go back into analyzing it. Like, okay, what worked? And then what needs to change? Okay, what needs to change? You just identified a new problem. And so on and so forth. And it's just, that is the process that we go through over and over and over again. It's circular. It's organic. It happens. But what I have found is when I identified it and I started to name these different phases for myself, it allowed a level of clarity that was extremely refreshing to begin with. But then also too, it gave me the confidence to know what I needed to do and what I needed to do next. And with that, you know, my production went up, and I've been seeing better and better results for all the different work projects that I am working on. So what I'd like to do now is I will stop screen sharing and come back. And what I'd like to kind of talk about is how you can use this moving forward and apply it to, you know, this entire journey that you've been on with us, with the 5 generations. And I'd love, you know, Dottie, as we're going through and I'm talking, I just want you to jump in wherever you feel you want to jump in, because this is really, you know, your baby. You know, all of us came together, but you are the in the wheel. Like if it's a wheel and we're all spokes, like you're at the center, you're at the core. You knew all of us and brought us together to really get the wheel moving and to get this movement started with these 5 generations of epic entrepreneurs coming together. And, you know, at the end of the day, you know, I see these entrepreneurs applying this model without, you know, without them probably knowing that, that there was this particular model that they were going through the process in. But I think the main thing that I want to, wrap this whole experience up with is by talking about how entrepreneurship is a process. That's something that it is discussed, but I wish it was discussed more to really normalize the process of it, that it's something that is ongoing and it's constant learning and constant growing. But my hope is that this model helps put a framework to it, so that whether it is you're making a mind shift, you identified a problem, you're coming up with different ideas for a solution to it, and that mind shift is going to help you get there. Whether it's your finances, that's such an important part of our life wheel that we're consistently going to be applying our entrepreneurial process to, of being able to be solutions focused. That's the lifeblood of our business. And so therefore, it's a very important component. And so the more that we're able to identify any solutions to any problems that arise, the healthier our business is going to be. And then going into wellness, being able to, you can apply this model not just to entrepreneurship in the traditional business sense, but entrepreneurship in taking care of yourself. You are the most important component of your business. It's one of those things where how you show up, that's the most important component. If you are not well, if you are in dis-ease, you're not going to be able to give your best performance. And at the end of the day, that's what your business needs, and that's what your family needs, that's what your community needs. But most importantly, it's what you need. That's what you need to live your best life. And so being able to identify a problem and then come up with different solutions, and then understanding it's a process. So for example, working out, it's about testing out what works for you. I had told a story earlier in the week about running, how it's just not my thing. As much as I would love for it to be my thing, because it's hands down the best cardio. When I was on the dance team, I was in the best shape of my life, not because I was dancing, but because I was running, and I'm like, man, it would be awesome to be able to do that again. But it's not a natural flow for me. So, I tested it out, and I know that if running is going to be part of my life, I probably need a team to hold me accountable. That's, and if I'm in a leadership position, even better. It's like a double whammy of, of being team oriented and believing in leadership and having that value to help motivate me. However, though, I had to test out some different things, and it turns out for me, walking works really well for me. I walk very long distances, and that seems to help me with my wellness, and so I've embraced that now. And then now
I just jump in
yes, please do,
because I think what you're sharing is so important with analogies. Even with myself, we're getting just a little echo now. Do you hear that?
Just a little bit.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure why that happened for a moment, but it's gone away. Anyway, one of the things that for me when I was coaching, I was running some then, but I was running inside during the winter. And when I left coaching, for one thing, I was like you. I never loved running at all. And so once I left coaching and I was having to go outside because I wasn't able to go inside in the winter, I started walking, and I found out that I absolutely love walking. And so I've walked for 35 years. A few years ago, I decided to put my test myself and do kind of like a triathlon, okay? And you know what? I did it. And you know what I also found out? I don't want to do any more. And that's okay. I tested it out. I knew so many people were loving it, but still, I don't love running.
Yeah.
And I did it, and I'm glad that I accomplished it. But I also putting that kind of commitment in that it's not where I want to spend my energy. But I do love staying healthy and doing things that really resonate with me. And I do a lot of critical thinking when I'm walking. It's what feeds my creativity. So I think it's a great way is, you're being entrepreneurial. And one thing I wanted to say about your amazing model is I think it so opens up a space for entrepreneurs to do what they really need to do, which is look at their process and be okay with that. Because I think when it's not a consciousness around the process, entrepreneurs want to hold on to, I'm right, you know, because they've gotten themselves so connected to their identity and being an entrepreneur, they can't own that, the imperfections, you know, and just the stuff that happens with being an entrepreneur. And so they continue often down a path that really is not the best path until they crash and burn, because they're wanting to hold on to so badly and they don't want to look bad. Well, this model, I think, enables people to just look at it without connecting to, I am my process. You know what I'm saying? So I think this is absolutely a wonderful model, because I have found in sharing our stories, people aren't interested in perfection, because perfection doesn't exist in anything, relationship or anything. So if we go around acting, you know, in our perfection, nobody resonates with us, because they go, well, you know, that's not me. That's not my experience. I've had stuff happen. And the more we share our stuff, the more people gravitate towards us. I mean, it's just an amazing thing that happens. So I think this really allows people to own their stuff that's going on about being an entrepreneur, and to I love what you said about failing quickly, you know, that's change quickly. And I like to say change forward, but guess what? Sometimes the change is a backward step, but we recognize it and then we change again, and because our intention is to change forward. That's always the intention out of recognizing something. But guess what? Sometimes it's a lateral move, okay? Or it's you know, when you're pivoting, think about it. You move backwards sometimes. Think about that. Pivoting with your foot on the ground, do it. Just put your foot on the ground and go all the way around in the circle. Now, wherever you are on the circle, no matter if you stop at, you know, noon, 15 after, 30 after, 45 minutes after, if you stop at quarter after, guess what? When you take a movement, you move away from quarter after, facing forward. You know what I'm saying? So, but you're still in this sphere of movement, and it's a consciousness about recognizing where your body is in that moment, where you are in your business. So very powerful model. I can't say enough about what you've put together, Jen.
Thank you so much. I so appreciate that. So, three things from what you just said. So, first one was you're talking about being able to use this model to recognize where you end and where your business begins, right? Where you are an independent entity separate from your business. And so I love how earlier, you know, you bring up in some different videos about how eagles fly above a storm instead of going for shelter, like they fly above the storm. And so I think that that's perfect for what this model is all about. It's about allowing you to be an eagle essentially and be above any type of storm that's going on, or, you know, great weather too, whatever it is, but being above it so that, you know, your identity isn't with the problem. Your identity is as the problem solver and being solutions focused and being able to see it from the bird's eye view. The second piece of it was talking about how you sometimes are what you perceive as forward. Sometimes you go lateral, and sometimes it can seem like it's going backwards. And, you know, I'm a dancer, and so I like to do the joke with myself, be like, well, that was more of a cha-cha today. So I went forward, 2 steps forward, 2 steps back, and you know what? I'm in the cha-cha right now of my business, and that is okay. Like, that's again part of the process. So I love that. And then the third thing that I wanted to just wrap up on was I was talking about wellness, and now I want to go into Cheryl's week of how she was talking about communication and how, you know, being solutions focused is such an essential part to how we communicate with others, how we communicate with our family, how we communicate with our team members, how we communicate with our community, whoever we are interacting with, how we communicate with our market. it really is about going through this process of identifying where there might be a problem. Where is there a communication breakdown, right? And what are some ideas of solving that? And then let's collaborate together. Let's make sure that we're on the same page. Let's test it out. Let's get some feedback with each other about how this is going. And then, let's talk about it. What is working for us, and what do we still want to change, or what do we want to change now, or what do we want to explore now? And and part of it too is maybe the word too that's coming to me now, of what I was saying, like change fast, change often. Maybe it's explore fast, explore often, always. Just know that you're constantly exploring, you're constantly gathering information, and constantly making educated decisions from there. So that is everything that I have for today. I hope that it has been helpful. Just know that you're going to be applying this problem solving the rest of your life, and I thank you for solving the problems that you are solving. It's very necessary, and any way that we can support you, reach out. We have our Facebook page. Leave some comments there. Reach out to us however you want to, and yeah, just let's share the journey together as we are walking this entrepreneurship path. And thank you so much for your time. And it was a true honor to be able to share this time with you and this space with you. And I look forward for us to continue this journey together. Thank you.
Hey, Jen, let me just end by just thanking you from the bottom of my heart for, for what you're offering, and to all of our E3 group. I mean, E3 is our expert epic entrepreneurs, and they are from the 20s to the 60s, starting first, of course, with our 20s generation, Miss Stephanie Scheller Dupree. And then in the 30s, that is Miss Jen Santoro, AKA Coach J. And then we go to our 40s with Yasmin Bijan Wilson, amazing coach. And then to Cheryl Bassett, the 50s generation, and me, Dottie Berry, AKA Coach B, in the 60s. And I want to end up, Jen, also with you're lovely about the cha-cha. I learned, I fell in love with ballroom dance and competitive badminton in college. Now, those two might seem very different. I won't even go into all the similarities that I could draw parallels with those. But I get it about, no wonder I've loved the cha-cha so much as an entrepreneur. But anyway, that's fantastic to think in terms of the entrepreneur and all the many dances that we do, the shag, the triple step, the tango, the salsa. Sometimes it requires different tools. And we are committed to helping each of you find those tools. We hope that you've enjoyed the 30-day Get Your Biz Lean. Because we're all about the process and the love of entrepreneurship. And we look forward to working with you in the future and being on our blabs each Monday. We still have those, which is blabmaven.com. Come and sit with us, or come and be coached. We welcome you to get into what we call the blab seat, which is the love seat. As Jen so eloquently pointed out, it is about giving and receiving the love. And that's what we're here to do in our support of each of you. And we thank you from the bottom of our heart for being a part of this journey. And Jen, again, many thanks. And we'll look forward to seeing everybody in the future.